Hello, everybody. You are listening to another episode of the podcast Rise and Tell with Sheekha. I am so excited because I was intrigued by the description that I read about this business and the idea behind it. Our guest for today is Ricardo Johnson. Ricardo currently lives in Barcelona and founded Oases. Ricardo is an expert in real estate tokenization, helping developers and investors leverage the blockchain technology to modernize strategies, democratize investments, and build long-term wealth. The fact that he was able to so beautifully explain the technology behind it and the whole idea of tokenization and tying it to real estate for someone like me who has no idea about it was great. I learned a lot today and I'm hoping you will too. Ricardo is empowered with this drive and this passion to make his business stay. And I'm pretty sure that is what's going to happen. Because when I asked him about his future, he had a vision for the next 25 years. I mean, when was the last time you heard someone talk about their vision for the next 25 years? I was absolutely floored by his stability, his ideas and vision for his future and the business, and I hope you will be too. What you will learn out of this podcast is strategies to leverage blockchain technology and to create and to build your wealth. You will also learn that it's not necessary for you to have loads of cash to own real estate and that you can use technology and the idea behind Oasis and what Ricardo has to invest in properties, and not just any properties, in luxury properties. So if you want to know more about tokenization, about real estate wealth building, then keep listening. Here's Ricardo. So there you go, everybody. We have with us Ricardo Johnson. Welcome, Ricardo. How have you been?
I'm great, thank you. And thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. It's actually a pleasure to have you on the show. I have been very excited and interested to learn about everything that you're doing because it sounds so modern and it sounds so, the current generation thing that you would hear about. So why don't we just start off with your story, Ricardo? How did you come up with the idea for Oasis?
So the idea came from a challenge that I faced in terms of being able to make real estate ownership more accessible. Being in real estate for the past 8 years, most of my clients pretty much, looked and sounded the same in terms of the demographic and, the age group, etc. And when it really came to the challenges, especially in the UK, this is where this company was originally based, most people can't actually afford property ownership. But it's still one of the cornerstones of wealth building. From an early age, we're kind of, brainwashed more or less into,
Yes.
having home ownership as, the pinnacle of, success essentially. And as time's going on and inflation is, inflating these house prices much faster than the wages are, inflating, home ownership is becoming more or less a distant goal for a lot of people. And you have, a huge percentage of Generation Z now who actually don't see home ownership in their future at all. This for me is a problem, and it's a problem that can actually be solved. So I turned to the blockchain and, tokenization as a way to really make home ownership more accessible. Now it's still, we're still probably 5 years away from, that becoming a reality for most people. But right. It means that the work I'm doing now is really, setting that trend where people are now hearing about it. I mean, what I'm doing is not necessarily new. It's been around for the past, 5-6 years, but as for the general public, they're still foreign to them. So my job is really to spread the word and really plant the seed to show people that, one, it is possible, and two, it is accessible now. And, eventually everyone will catch up to it.
Oh, wow. That is interesting. And yeah, you were right. I mean, as a millennial myself and Toronto market, oh my God, real estate is just insane. I cannot begin to explain the steps that we had to go through and the amount of houses that we saw just to find an affordable house within our budget. And again, the first question that any real estate agent that we spoke to told us, oh no, you are not going to get anything in your budget here, at least an hour away from Toronto. So we had to search for a place an hour and a half away.
No way.
And still we got like a 33-year-old house, which is as old as me, I think, now. So yeah, that's insane. So I'm intrigued, Ricardo. This is crazy. So how would you explain the process and what Oasis does to someone who has absolutely zero idea about tokenization?
So you want to look at tokenization as a way to own a piece of a property rather than owning the whole thing, you know? So essentially how we operate is we partner with developers who are developing these properties. We secure a few of their units and then bring them access to our marketplace. The actual tokenization part, the technology part is all happening behind the scenes. But as an investor, all it means is that instead of having to, let's say the property is $500,000, instead of having to come up with that level of money or typically, you know, a huge deposit for that property, if you have $10,000, $20,000, you can just then own a percentage of that property. You own it through the tokens. So you own a percentage of those tokens, and then that's how you interact with the actual property. So if you wanted to sell your tokens, there's a marketplace where you can sell them. So it just makes it a lot more flexible, a lot more accessible. And then we can add additional benefits to it. So instead of just getting the rental income from that property, you can get access rights to that property. You get voting rights. If, let's say, you wanted to vote to sell the property, like your ownership is actually valuable. It's an actual asset that you then possess. You can pass down, you can build your portfolio. Like, we just wanted to make it really easy for anyone just to sign up to a platform the same way you would sign up to, let's say, Vanguard to invest in stocks, but now you can invest in properties.
Oh, okay. Got it. Wow, that is interesting. So how does growth look like for, let's say, someone who has $80,000 and is ready to start investing in this technology and then get on this ride? How does the next 5 years look like for this person?
So they'll be able to access a wide range of properties. So we focus on luxury resort properties in tourist destinations. So it's not necessarily a home you would go and live in, but it's somewhere that will be managed as a short-term rental. You know, if you wanted to go and stay in that property, you can, you know, get either complimentary or even book a stay in there. But essentially what it would allow you to do is invest in properties in different markets. So instead of having to, typically what would happen is someone who has, say, 80,000, they would have to focus on their, you know, their local geographic. So they'll go to their local agency, speak to them, say, hey, this is my budget, you know, what can I invest in? You know, what can I buy? And it'll literally be, let's say, within, you know, 30 minutes from where they live. But where are all the best opportunities? It's not always going to be exactly where you live, right? So, and you can only invest, let's say, for that level of budget, you can only really buy one property. But now you can invest and diversify into multiple properties, you know, from all over the world. So you get access to the capital appreciation of these properties over the years. You get access to the rental income that it generates, and you get access to stay in these properties that you own. So yeah, you just have a nice, you know, much more safer portfolio that you can invest in.
That is interesting. Oh, wow. It's like, I don't have the money to buy a house, but I can still buy a part of a luxury resort.
Exactly. Cool. Exactly.
That is so cool. And the technology part of it, again, the STEM girl in me wants to know more about that technology. So how does it all work in the background?
So we all use,
or behind the scenes?
So because it's on the blockchain, we all use the smart contracts. So there isn't any, although you're using our platform, there isn't any middleman between you and that property. You're investing directly within the company that owns that property. So we run it through pre-sales. So we literally make it available that anyone can invest, and we then crowdfund that investment. So let's say we're raising, you know, $1 million for this particular investment. Anyone could then pledge their funds to that smart contract. once that $1 million is actually raised, it triggers an event where we would actually come in place and then start acquiring that property, setting up the company, and we then manage it on behalf of the investors. Then all the rental income is then distributed directly to their wallets via that smart contract. So anytime you sell, your tokens to somebody else, or that's transferred from one wallet to another, it's then recorded on the blockchain. So, you don't get any double payments, or you can't necessarily sell tokens that don't exist. So it basically makes it a much more safer, a much more transparent, I suppose, marketplace for anyone to really, invest. You can see the transaction history of that token. You can see all the funds that's been distributed to that token. It doesn't, because it's all on the blockchain, it's all in one ledger that you can always check anywhere.
Right. Interesting. Cool. So Ricardo, tell me, when you got this idea and when you started working on it, started building your business, what was the biggest challenge that you faced?
There was a huge gap between when I actually got the idea to when I started to, actually put it together. Probably a few years, in fact. Like at this time, when I first thought of, it would be great if we can do this. At that time, I had no experience in tech at all. My background's in finance and real estate. So that's what I was doing at the time, right? And I couldn't really figure out, how I could really put it together. So at that time, I was building out a management portfolio. I was investing myself. I might have been like 5 years into my actual, real estate experience. So I was still learning at that time. And it was, it got to the point where this is around about the times of the pandemic. So everything was locked down. I had a lot more time on my hands, and I decided to build an app, right? This app was called Sheekha. The idea was that I could make property management easy for people who self-manage their portfolios. So I thought, okay, let me build that out. And I just, whatever happens, we'll just see what happens here, right? So I went the traditional, startup route, found a CTO, started to, hire developers, started to build. And essentially it got to around about 18 months and I still hadn't had an actual product, to sell. Like I couldn't. So I ended up having to scrap that business completely. But what it did do, it gave me a lot of exposure. So I was able to get into a few, incubation, programs, some accelerators that, just helped along the way in terms of the knowledge in terms of the being able to build these platforms. So although I didn't have direct experience of building on the blockchain, I had experience of building a tech platform. So this idea that I had on the shelf, for all these years, I thought, okay, maybe it's not so foreign to me now. And I was actually directly faced with this problem, There was people who wanted to get involved in my property deals that didn't have the full funds to get involved. So I was like, okay, what if I just tokenize this deal here, So I didn't sell it as, okay, you're going to buy into these tokens, X, Y, and Z. But I said, okay, you couldn't afford to, you can't afford the whole deal, but would you invest, 10% to own 10% of it? And they were like, yeah. I said, okay, let's see if there's more people who would want to invest and have fractional ownership of this particular deal. And that's how I pulled that part together. Once I had that, at this time it was around if you are familiar with like crypto, this is around like the NFT wave. So for me, it made, building on the blockchain a lot more accessible in terms of developing smart contracts. You had established marketplaces where you could, list your NFTs and sell them and those things. The legalities at this point wasn't so clear as they are now, but the opportunity was there. So I thought, okay, let me just try it. And my first project was an NFT project, and I started tokenizing my deals, and people were buying into the deals that I was managing just from these tokens. So that gave me, one, the barrier to entry was a bit lower in terms of what it really took to do it. And it meant that I could do essentially what I was already doing, but now it was just enabled better because I had, the technology on top of that.
Technology. Wow.
It wasn't as, as easy as I'm making it sound, So all the challenges that I faced in that business, I then was able to, formulate them into what I have now with Oases, essentially.
That is so inspiring to me, Ricardo. It's like you didn't stop. And I feel that's where most people, they give up after a certain point, or once they've, failed, or something didn't work out that they thought, oh, this is going to be the next big thing. You took what you learned from your failures, applied it, and now it's just running great. That was so inspiring. That is cool. And I'm pretty sure you must have had a lot of challenges, but the fact
Mhm.
that you are here now and talking about it um, tells a lot about you as a person too. So my next question, Ricardo, to you is going to be, what drives you?
That's a
What's
great question.
like, what's inside you?
I think early on in my business career, I assumed that, it was money that really drove me. But what I learned is that really it's the personal development. That's what really drives me. It's really being able to prove to myself that I can do something. So I never really looked at, these things as impossible to do. I knew that
Mm.
if I decided that I was going to do it, then it was going to happen. And it was just being able to accept the journey as it comes, and the trials and tribulations, and being able to overcome the challenges as they come. But knowing that at the end of that journey, I would have learned so much and developed so much as a person. And, the failure rate in business in general, like, I have to ignore that. People always, oh, it's, 9 out of 10, but those things don't really matter. The businesses only really fail, in my eyes, when that founder or that developer quits. Because if you were to, look at these businesses that we look at today, they didn't, for example, if you think about like Facebook, Meta,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
when it first came out, it was completely different to where we are today, right?
Exactly.
So it's like you need to be able to understand that it's a long game, and wherever you start, you're going to pivot and, amend your way into success. So it's being able to really withstand whatever comes in place along that journey to get to that point eventually. So you'll look back and be like, okay, this is, so this is just part of that journey.
Beautifully said, and so on point. I love that. I love what you just said, Ricardo. And I have kind of experienced that myself too, because when I started the podcast, I never imagined that I would have a Hollywood producer and or a Hollywood director on my show. And one day, and I did not even reach out to them. I was just going on with my own business, trying to do something, and then I received an email, and they said, "Oh, you know what? We have the crew of this movie called The Science of Getting Rich. It ties to self development a little bit. Are you open to interviewing there?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So I interviewed the crew. The cast, and then I emailed them saying, "Okay, I'm done. Is there anybody else left that I could talk to?" And the director himself was like, "I can come on your show. Would that be okay?" I'm like,
Wow.
"Why not?
Wow.
Sure." So yeah, that to me taught me. That was an eye opener thing. I was never looking to interview producers or directors. My thought was, okay, I would want someone, like I love books, so authors maybe, or writers, poets or teachers, someone, who've been there, done that kind of deal. And then when I actually heard the stories from these people, I was shocked because they are exactly like us. They started from ground zero and then just built up their success or their career. And like you said, it's the journey that matters, and the fact that the faster you realize that it's going to take a lot more time, and if you're okay with it, then you're all set.
Oh,
And that's
100%.
what
100%. It's
truly matters.
it's like, so like, even being able to like build a podcast, this is something that I've thought about doing. I used to have a podcast studio, so I used to like hire out the space and those things. And I always thought to myself, like, what if I start a podcast X, Y, and Z? But it's like the decision that I have to then make from that is, am I willing to do 1,000 episodes?
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
Like in
Correct.
terms of what if it takes 1,000 episodes to get one sponsor in terms of it being profitable or it being successful, whatever the case may be. And
Yeah.
that's a level of commitment that I think people need to have when it comes to doing business, when it comes to building their career, when it comes to doing anything. Like it's can I, how long can I withstand this, because it's not going to be easy. I'm sure there were times where, you were tired and you had to still do the show. I'm sure there were times where, the show didn't go as well as you planned, but you still had to, put the episode out. Like it's I know it's definitely not easy, but what it did put you in position is when opportunity came, you were already prepared, to take advantage of that opportunity. And obviously more will come, and it's just a beautiful journey when you can look at it from that perspective.
Exactly. 100%. Couldn't agree more. Okay. Ricardo, now I really want to know about your fears.
Okay.
When you started this business, I know you had already you had faced a failure. Did it ever cross your mind that, this might not work out either? Did that ever happen? And how did you overcome that?
Um, Something I probably still battle with on a daily basis. It's in business in general. You don't necessarily know what's coming around the corner. And I think especially when you're in a business like real estate, there's a lot of external factors which can play, or have a lot of influence over, your success. Yes and no. But in terms of like, for example, if I go back to the other startup, the app I was building, the reason why I quit
Right.
is because at the time where I was about to raise money for that company, this is when the war in Russia and Ukraine started.
Right.
And speaking to investors, they were like, we don't know if World War III is about to start, so we're not deploying any capital. And in my head, like after getting that a couple times, I just gave up because I was thinking it's just wrong timing, right? It could have been that it didn't have to necessarily be the case. I could have spoke to 1,000 more, maybe, would have been successful. But it's there's a lot of things that can come in place that can, have an effect on you, your business. And in terms of like fears, it's when you get to a certain age, I suppose we're more or less the same age. Starting business becomes a lot more riskier, because there's a lot more at risk in terms of, the time you have to dedicate into your business is time, is an opportunity cost where you could be dedicating that time elsewhere and you can't get time back, But what kind of gives me comfort, even with those fears, is that my vision for, let's say 2050, so we're talking 25 years from now. Yeah. Is the work that I'm doing now going to matter in 25 years? And because my conviction is so high that it will matter, then at that point, it's worth me, whatever happens in the next 25 years, it's going to be worth it regardless. I'm in a space where it's still very small, still very new, but that because the way technology grows and develops and the way the adoption rate of technology in general works, that it's inevitable what's going to happen within the next 5, 10. It's a bit like AI if you look at it in that way. Yeah. So yeah, but you still don't know what's going to happen around the corner, and your livelihood is at stake, with that. Yeah. But to be honest, like I've always, since I left uni, I've always, ran my own business. So it's something that I don't know if that ever will go, I don't know if that ever will go.
Yes. That's something, that's always in the back of your mind where you always wanted to start a business, try to solve a problem and do something and put something out in the world and then get paid for it. But yeah, no, that is awesome. That's awesome, Ricardo. That's really exciting. So I know you spoke about the next 25 years and what your vision is, but I'm going to ask you like a typical job interview question. What does the next 5 years look like for Oasis and for Ricardo?
It looks very bright. I feel that. Yay. Yeah. This next 5 years is going to be pivotal in general. In terms of like the crypto space, how regulation is now starting to catch up to, the times. Things are changing. Things are becoming more accessible, a bit easier to navigate than it was, let's say, 5 years prior. Which is all good signs overall. I feel like, in terms of like the geopolitics of what's happening, like there's still a lot of movements, but I'm very optimistic about how things are looking, for the future in terms of technology, the adoption of technology, finance in general, real estate. So for me, this next 5 years is really about proving that we're here to stay. We're here to stay for the long haul.
Yeah.
And because it's so new in general, like there's still, let's say there's another 50 other, maybe even more, 50 other platforms that are doing something a bit similar or, in the real estate space, combine it with blockchain, et cetera, et cetera. But I think now is our time in general, now is a time while things are now starting to bubble. This next 5 years is going to really be that proving grounds, to really, for everyone to capture their audience, for everyone to capture their portfolio, to capture their niche. And then from then it's just, scaling up from that point.
Love it. Love that for you. Good luck, Ricardo. And I'm so excited to see you talk about the next 5 years with that zeal and that passion. And it's so infectious, to say the least, that fuel that you have in you. So that's really cool. I wish you all the luck and all the very best for Oasis and for your journey as well, Ricardo.
Thank you.
Great.
Can I ask you that same question?
Sure, absolutely. So for me, I'm already writing my second book, which is a sci-fi romance, actually kind of dystopian sci-fi romance. So I think 20, and I have actually not said this, but yeah, 20,000 words in.
Wow.
I have to write a lot more. So yes, I will be publishing another book this year or next year, for sure. And the next 3 years, I really want Rise and Tell, the podcast, to grow and reach to as many people as it can in different parts of the world.
Nice.
Anywhere, just influence even one person. If they could hear the show and be like, you know what, I actually got this from your show, and I'm happy that I heard your podcast, or did something out of it, I would have said I made it.
I like that. There's a good book I read. I can't remember the author, but it's called Moonshots, and I read that and when I hear you talk, and the things that you're doing, it sounds like you're not just staying into one particular niche or one particular arena. You're branching out into other things, and I love the idea of a sci-fi novel, and yeah, looking forward to reading it when it's out.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. I will send it. I will send you a copy once I've published it.
Perfect.
For sure. Okay, Ricardo, before we end the show, is there any advice, any suggestion, or any thought that you want to share with our audience?
I think if you want to learn more about, real estate, tokenization, the future of real estate, I have a YouTube channel with a little series on there that I've been recording and publishing, which will give you more of an overview of the opportunities that are coming, how you can get involved in those opportunities, and really just planting the seed of, what's happening in the scene at the moment. If you want to connect with me, you connect with me on Instagram, Rico C. Johnson, or LinkedIn, Ricardo C. Johnson. My website, oasesglobal.io. If you interested in investing, you can sign up there. But yeah, really, if you just have questions, want to reach out, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ricardo. That was so helpful. And last thoughts, I am so excited for Oasis and for you and your 25-year vision, and cannot wait to see where this goes. And I wish you all the very best. And thank you so much for being a guest on our show, Ricardo.
No, thank you for having me. It's been great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Did I tell you that you would know more about blockchain and how to build your wealth in simple steps. Well, I'm hopeful that you learned something new out of this episode, and I hope you get a chance to check out the other episodes too. As always, keep growing, keep glowing, and be yourself. This is your host, Sheekha Singh, signing off. Bye.